Over the past couple of weeks, Texas has seen 2 school shootings. In our quest to be solution-focused, we couldn't help but pause and think about how violence in our schools could be related to violence at home.
When we look at the background of many school shooters, we see that they do have traumatic events that can lead to loneliness, helplessness, and not feeling like there is a solution to their problems. And when they feel that way, the feeling of revenge can build up. And that's what we typically see as the catalyst to a lot of school shootings.
Today on The Balanced Voice, Rania is proud to welcome back episode 30 guest Tamron Hall to further discuss Domestic Violence Awareness Month as it relates to humans and pets. Then we turn to our very own Safe School Institute manager, Jenna Fondren, to investigate how a traumatic home life could be contributing to violence at school. Jenna covers everything from misconceptions about school shootings to reasons why students might choose to kill, and much more. Today is an important and jam-packed conversation. So without further ado, here's your host, Rania Mankarious.
Welcome to the Balanced Voice podcast. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we always take the time to talk about the impact of domestic violence on the community and family specifically. Today, we'll bring back one of our favorites, Tamron Hall, for a look at how domestic violence impacts the animals in the home. We'll share the work that she's doing with Purina to help find a solution. We follow that, though, with a conversation on family violence and its impact in the schools. We've had 2 school shootings in the Texas area, and we want to look at solutions. Jenna Fondren will be joining us for that conversation. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Balanced Voice podcast. We are thrilled to have back with us Tamron Hall to talk about her work with the Purple Leash Foundation on domestic violence and the plight that survivors have and victims have in leaving an abuser because of their pets. Tamron, welcome. Thank you for being back with us.
Rania, it's so good to be back with you to spread the word about this incredible effort that is making a difference.
Well, talk to us about how you got involved in this and why this is so important to you.
In 2009, I was approached by Purina and Red Rover to partner with them on the Purple Leash Project. And I'll be honest with you, Rania, I had no idea what the Purple Leash Project was. I did know the focus would be to help survivors of domestic violence. In the conversation, I learned something that I had not heard in my 30 years of being a journalist and my nearly 10 years now working with survivors of domestic violence. What I learned is that 48% of people who live in homes where there's domestic violence don't leave because they can't take their pets with them. They're ready for help at a shelter in their community, but the shelters are unable to accept the pets too. And the Purple Leash Project, the goal here with Purina and Red Rover is to change that. Right now, we're around 10 to 15%, and that's growth since 2019. But the goal is 25% of the shelters in the United States by year 2025, have them equipped to be able to take the survivor and their pet so that they can heal together in a safe space. And that's why I'm talking with you today.
Yeah, because you think 40%, almost 50% of women or victims choose not to leave because the pet is part of the family, whether it's they choose to stay because of a child being abused, finances, or their animals. So the initiative here to make sure that shelters can actually accommodate animals is so critical. How do we help? What do we need to be doing?
Thank you for asking. And I think the first step is going to the website, purpleleashproject.com. And there, people who are listening to us now will see information on how to donate. Also, just, for example, wearing something purple and posting it on your social media and educating your friends and people in your circle about this underreported and underdiscussed dynamic of domestic violence. You make the point, Rania, we've talked over years about financial abuse and how people are, stuck in homes because they don't have the resources to leave, or how children, for example, are used by abusers to keep people silent and keep them suffering. Again, I'd never heard of this particular disturbing number involving pets. And many of these pets are in danger if they're left behind. They are used much like children, as ways to blackmail and manipulate. So if we can help a survivor who is ready to leave in that most critical and dangerous part of this, leaving the home when you've decided, I am no longer going to stay here. I am able now to go get help, and I can take my pet. That is life-saving. It's not life-changing, it is life-saving. So if people could go to the website, learn more information, or as I said, go to your social media, talk to your friends, share this story, I know it will make a difference. And so what we're looking at is the goal of about 25, as I said, 25% by 2025. And that means for the domestic violence shelter or the shelter that the survivor will be able to find a safe space in, the pet will have an outdoor area, indoor area, spaces for cats so that they can do cat things and all of those wonderful things. So that part of this healing includes that for a family member. I've had dogs. I currently have a bird. I've had pets my entire life. We are looking for my son Moses to have his first pet. Yeah. They are the loves of our lives. On my darkest days and on my brightest moments, my May love was right there with me. And she was featured in my social media post last year wearing her purple leash before we had to say goodbye after 13 beautiful years with her. So this is from the bottom of my heart as a pet owner and also as the sister of someone whose life was cut short as a result of domestic violence.
It's one of those things we always talk about when people hear that a victim is suffering in an abusive situation. It seems to be their problem. Oh, it's terrible, but it's not really our business. And our message here is it's all of our problems. Mm-hmm. We've got to do what we can to help victims of domestic violence and give them every resource, every tool, every opportunity to leave and to leave safely, and to provide them the what's required to take care of, as we said, their children, their pets, and everything else. So the work you're doing, Tamron, out of your love for animals, but also in honor of your sister's legacy, is so powerful. The fact that you lend your voice and your name and your face to this is enormous. We need to all be shopping Purina. Is there anything we need to be looking for when we go make that purchase?
No, at this point, I think it's there, and that's to your point. It's recognizing that it's no longer hidden behind closed doors. We're no longer buying into the line that abusers have wanted Rania for us to believe, which is it's none of our business. It is our business, and we're getting involved. Go to the website. There are a number of ways to help, to donate. I can't stress that enough, but that's the call to action. Let's just get on that. I've got my phone next to me. Post a picture. Nothing looks better on skin than purple.
I wish I'm looking at you. I'm like, why didn't I wear purple today? Why didn't I wear purple?
I'll send you something purple.
Okay.
Listen, because at the end of the day, as heartbreaking as these numbers are, my heart is full knowing that people like you, people behind the scenes at Purina and Red Rover and at all of these shelters around the country, they want to see a change here. So this is not an effort of, pushing a rock up the hill. We're all in it. And it's just about spreading the word and taking action.
And when that happens, change actually does happen. And you are helping so many people. The work at Crime Stoppers together, we are helping so many people. We're so thankful to you. We will be posting this on our social media for sure and sharing it and continuing to share the great work that you do. Thank you for being with us again.
Thank you, Rania.
And we'll be following your work as you do such great work in the community. Thank you, Tamron. You just heard our conversation with Tamron Hall, where we looked at the impact of family violence, domestic violence, partner violence, and specifically on animals and some of the solutions that people are putting in place. But now we want to turn our attention to violence in the home and how it impacts students at school. And for that conversation, we're bringing in Jenna Fondren, who runs our Safe School Institute. Jenna is visiting us today from Austin. Jenna, welcome to The Balanced Voice.
Thank y'all. Thank you so much for having me, Rania. This is such an important conversation, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we've had two really significant situations that have come out of the Texas area, one in Houston, not too far from our headquarters, and one out of Arlington, Texas. And Jenna, this is your area of expertise and your area of study. So let's start with why. Why would a student feel the need to bring a weapon to school and take the lives of other kids?
Man, that's a loaded question, but one that I think is really important that we dive into. So many students are experiencing a troubled home life. When we look at the background of many school shooters, we see that they do have traumatic events that have happened in their life that do directly impact their mental health. So we're seeing a mental health crisis amongst youth, and I think we know that. But the rise of depression and paranoia, especially in school shooters, feeling excluded, socially isolated, they've potentially experienced harassment or bullying. And when a student feels isolated or a student feels excluded, that can lead to loneliness, helplessness, and not feeling like there is a solution to their problems. And when they feel that way, the feeling of revenge can build up. And that's what we typically see as the catalyst to a lot of school shootings.
When you think of the fact of isolation, and through our Safe School Institute, we've partnered with the Be Nice program out of West Michigan, and they've been really good at helping school communities come together, bringing other students into the solution, and making sure that students who might feel different or look different or behave differently aren't isolated, but embraced. And part of that is because we know that feeling of isolation, loneliness leads to depression. As you said, those students come back, they'll take the lives of others and revenge, but they also will take their own lives. So it's been interesting to read some of the notes that you put together, where we look at, a lot of these school shooters, it's not just about revenge, because they end up taking their own lives.
They do. And what's interesting is when we look at just data surrounding mental health and suicide ideation in teens, we see that most teens that are suicidal are not homicidal. But in these special cases of school shootings, we're noticing they are taking their lives plus the lives of many others. And it's a small group of people that we can study to look at why that's particularly happening. And I believe it's because of that feeling of revenge and wanting their story to be heard and then to finally be seen for the very first time. So many school shooters have that long history of bullying. And when they reached out and they asked for help, their cries were either unheard or not taken seriously.
Which is heartbreaking, actually. And it become an interesting way in terms of how media have dealt with school shooters, not to glorify the shooter and paint the picture to others who might be thinking, gosh, this is how I get noticed, recognized. People will know that I was hurt. People will know that I was angry. I'll leave my mark forever. Media has been really conscious about not doing that. And I think that's a positive. But on the flip side, we haven't really dealt with the real issue, which is the deep rejection and isolation that these kids have felt.
Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, to deal with that rejection and isolation, we just need to start having more conversations amongst our youth. We have to start talking to them and destigmatizing that feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, and making sure that students feel like they have safe places at school and at home to talk about something that they're potentially struggling with.
So let's look at numbers. So just the number of school shootings throughout the years. In 2018, there were 24 school shootings. In 2019, there were 25. In 2020, that number went down to 10. Obviously, I'm assuming COVID related. 2021, we're already at 23. 15 of those have taken place since August 1st. 4 of them have been in Texas. You look at like Columbine and Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, Parkland, Santa Fe, and those very much follow the same sort of scenario that you're talking about. Someone's bullied, they feel isolated, they want revenge, and they take their lives in the process. But the 2 shootings we saw most recently in Texas are a little different than that. So talk to me about the motivations. There are multiple motivations, the other motivations behind why somebody would take a weapon to school and take the life of another.
Absolutely. The intent is not always revenge or mass homicide. There are cases in which it was very circumstantial. The shooting that happened at Timberview High School with the 18-year-old retaliating against the 15-year-old was because earlier in that day, they got into a physical altercation. And the 18-year-old, through the things I can comb through on the news, seemingly felt embarrassed and ashamed of being potentially beaten in a fight, and to kind of defend his honor, ended up shooting somebody multiple times. And through the news articles and through the research we've done, we also knew that he had a weapon on school grounds that day. And so there are multiple students who do bring weapons to school every single day. Some students bring weapons to school in case they need to defend themselves. Some students bring weapons to school because they're just trying to, again, prepare to fight back. They want to show off the weapons to their friends. And we've even done a lot of research where families are encouraging their children to defend their honor and defend themselves, which in turn kind of triggers this idea where kids think, I can bring a gun or a knife to school because my family said I need to protect myself.
Yeah, there were quotes you sent to me, quote unquote, to never bring shame on the family name, or quote, never start a fight, just finish it, end quote. I mean,
yeah,
it's such a sad reality that kids are being taught that at home. But then you also think there are kids who are going to some very dangerous schools and are afraid when they go to school and do not know how to protect themselves without, or do not feel that they can protect themselves without bringing their own weapon. And that doesn't always have to be a gun. I mean, it can be other types of weapons. But I mean, you saw the conversation after what happened in Arlington. It goes back to lock down the schools, metal detectors, fence the property off. And I keep thinking that doesn't even make sense. And it's not a foolproof plan. We've got to be changing the psychology, the hearts and minds of students and the culture within the school.
Absolutely. Culture and climate of the school is actually usually the number one predictor for school violence. There's a lot of studies that say whatever the belief system is within the culture of a school is going to actually, you'll see the numbers of bullying rise because of whatever the culture is at that school, and whatever the culture is also affects the violence. Rania, one thing that my team and I hear a lot when we go to schools and we just talk about violence and we talk about anonymous reporting and what you can and cannot bring to school. We have a lot of students that will come up to us personally and say things like, I was told to bring a knife with me because my walk home from school to my house is pretty unsafe, and I don't know what could potentially happen to me. And they start to panic because they realize that the knife that they have on them that they're only wanting to use for protection is now illegal to have on a school campus. But what we also need to talk about is the more weapons that are at school, even if they're for protection, could potentially be used to harm somebody else. And we never know what the circumstance might be. A fight might break out that is unplanned, and a student thinks to themselves, oh, I have a weapon with me. I can use this to help someone. I can use this to defend my friend. And so we do need to have bigger and larger conversations on weapons in schools. And I think adults need to open their hearts and minds a little bit more to the fact that a lot of kids are scared and do bring weapons for other reasons, not to hurt somebody, but they can lead to catastrophic events.
Hi, I'm Jenna.
Hey, I'm Caitlin.
And as members of the Safe School team, we go out and present to students all day, every day, as well as parents, school-based law enforcement, and school staff.
We present on topics such as cyber safety, mental health, teen dating, human trafficking, and so many more.
They're free preventative education presentations. And to learn more, please go to crime-stoppers.org.
And there are community solutions. And, it's funny because I don't think there aren't solutions. I think there are solutions, but they seem hard to achieve. So we've gone into communities where they say we're putting together neighborhood monitors. We're going to have 4 parents on 4 different corners that are high trafficked areas for pedestrian students because we know our neighborhood is not safe. it's simple. I know it's not simple, but in terms of you have to get the community on the same page, you have to get them engaged, you have to get volunteers, you have to make it consistent, but it can be done. And I don't think enough communities are coming together to look at solutions. And I'm very proud of the Safe School Institute. This program has removed almost 290 weapons from schools in our area before. And if I could say that and scream and jump through the ceiling, I would, before they could have ever been used against a student. And it's because it follows a very consistent model that's been in schools for a long time and seems to work. So talk a little bit about how the Institute works in the schools and how it does keep schools safe and students safe proactively.
Absolutely. Well, we believe in a two-tiered system when going into schools. We not only want to provide students with prevention, programming, and education and transparent conversations, but we also need to provide students with a safe and anonymous way to report crime. Our two tools that we bring into schools is tip line and education. So at the beginning of every single presentation that we offer students, we talk about the importance of utilizing your voice, the importance of speaking up, the fact that students are the eyes and the ears of a school campus. They hear and see everything before the adults do. And if they can basically empower themselves and harness courage to call the Crime Stoppers tip line and report about something that's happening on campus that is illegal, directly violates the student code of conduct, or is just scary and confusing, we know that that could potentially save lives. Once we talk about the tip line and empower them to utilize their voices, we do go into our education. We cover things from active shooter to bullying prevention, cyber safety, mental health, dating violence. We have 13 different subjects that we actually cover in schools. And it's really just to provide students with enough information to make good decisions. We never, ever want to see a student become a victim of crime, and we want to prepare them to act if something bad was to occur.
When you're in schools, and you are in schools all over this county, but actually now we're touching schools all over the state and even out of Texas, are you surprised at where school districts are in terms of their level of being prepared for this type of incident? I mean, there seems to be a lot of discussion, a lot of research into how to respond to a shooting on school campus. Do you think we're where we need to be, or not yet?
I think we're getting close. From every training that my colleagues and I have attended, this is probably the number one area of concern. And there are so many different leaders in school safety that have dedicated their lives to this particular issue. There are many threat assessment trainings and different types of procedures that are put in place on school campuses if this was to ever happen. But I do think we need a little bit more work. I think there needs to be more active shooter trainings actually amongst the students and the staff. There seems to be a lot of training amongst administration and trainings with the higher ups in the school districts, but it must trickle down, and we have to have the conversations. And it seems scary. A lot of parents will even tell me, and my colleagues will say, talking to my kids about a potential active shooter, it terrifies me. I don't want to instill fear in them. And I completely understand that point of view. And we never want to instill fear in a child, but we want them to feel knowledgeable and we want them to feel prepared. And there's a way to do that in an age appropriate way.
Yeah. And I think if you are really listening to your children who have access to everything, even from their gadgets, if they're not sitting watching the evening news, they have access to news from their gadgets. Kids talk at school. They hear it from older siblings. They know that school shootings take place. They know young elementary school kids know that school shootings take place. The greatest gift we can give them is the sense that we have this school, the school you go to has it under control. We also, the leaders, the parents, the teachers, the administration, we know that this can happen. We are on the forefront, and we are actively doing everything we can to keep you safe. And you're going to be part of the solution. I think that's very empowering for even little kids. And you're right. Everything we do is an age appropriate manner. And, we're so proud of the Safe School Institute. Everything it offers is free, and it offers so much So we invite you to go to our website, crime-stoppers.org, to learn more about the offerings of the Safe School Institute. And Jenna, I think we'll just wrap it up with, it looks like school violence is trending down. Is that what you're finding? And do you think that's just a COVID issue, or do you think we're going to go right back up? What is your assessment of that?
No, I don't actually think that it's just a COVID issue. If we look at data, we're actually seeing that trends in violence and victimization at schools reveal that overall violence has declined since 1992. We have seen a decline in violence, which I know seems like a paradox to some people, because most of what we're seeing in the news right now is startling and scary, and the headlines horrify us. But in reality, physical bullying and threats to students have decreased over the last decade. Overall violent crime in schools has also decreased steadily. And so we're on the right track. Schools are safe places. And of course, every once in a while, there is a tragedy that does occur, and we will deal with it head on. But I'm happy with what we're seeing, and I want students and school communities to know that there are so many experts that are trying to make sure that schools feel safe and secure always.
Jenna Fondren, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. There's one question we didn't answer, and I think we might actually move it to Instagram later. We'll bring you back, but should we be arming teachers? And I think that's an important question we can talk about later. But Jenna, thank you so much for your time on the Balanced Voice podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Rania's work by following her at The Rania Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.